Welcome to the 2022 Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation. And also welcome to this GLO as a part of our celebration of our 20th anniversary year. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the Artistic Director, and Nina Strike, the Executive Director, in welcoming Steve Michelson, producer and distributor with whom we have worked many years over many projects. And now please welcome Steve to talk a little bit about your life's work. Thank you.
Hi, Steve, and it is great to see you as always. You have joined us in person in Florida for the festival on more than one occasion, and we have virtually communicated, been in touch through the pandemic and even before that. So we're so delighted to have you here with us. You have been a distributor, you're a filmmaker yourself. Tell us about your work overall and the distribution company that you've started and run, and the new nonprofit that you're currently running. So give us the whole overview.
Well, Nina and Kelly, you know, most people spend a lot of time trying to figure out what they're going to do in life. I never had that experience. Being born into a 5-generation media family, 2 before me, 2 after. My earliest memories are on location with my father, recording sound effects. My grandfather was a radio distributor of the old-time radio shows and series, and my father, as a family, we built the world's largest collection of sound effects in the 1950s. So I never went in the front door of anything. If we went to the zoo, we were sloshing around in the back, or we went to the train yards, we were always with a microphone. In fact, my father bought the very first reel-to-reel audio 1/4-inch recorder called the Wollensak, a Polish device, and he carried it with him all everywhere. And life was fun, and I never thought of it. I tell people, if your father at the circus is shot out of a cannon every night, you think that's normal. So that was my life as a child. But at 14, I said to my father, he was an international television distributor at that time, why can't you distribute films that don't make Americans look so idiotic? His #1 selling film was Hee Haw. And it was just a bunch of sight gags and terrible. I said, why can't you distribute what we watch as a family every Thursday night, Jacques Cousteau? And his answer then to his 14-year-old son was, son, you know, people want to come home. They don't want to solve the world's problems. They want to have a beer and kick back and laugh. And so it took a long time for me to figure out the answer to my own question. And it wasn't really until 1998, having had an illustrious media career, I started and owned a large part of the largest video post-production company in the United States in the 1970s and 80s. I had 600 employees and divisions in New York and Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston, and all run out of San Francisco, where I live. So it's been a meteoric experience in that respect. But then in 1998, I had an opportunity to make a film called The Climb Against the Odds. It was the very first film on breast cancer by a courageous group of women from the Breast Cancer Fund in San Francisco, who believed that breast cancer was an environmental disorder. And that particular film had so much impact. 26 million people saw the film. US postal stamp came from the impact of the film that generated, as to date, over $150 million. At the time we made the film, breast cancer was the 2nd largest killer in the world. It was a women's disease, so no one was all too interested in it. People were using the C word to describe it. It was uncomfortable. And now, what is it, 25, close to 30 years later, take a look. We can't go anywhere in America without people wearing the bow and runs and walks for breast cancer. And so it's, you know, it's come out of the closet, and it's been a great experience for me to see how one can make a film that is cause related, and that's all I do now. I only work on cause related films that are going to change minds and hearts. I joke with people, Nina and Kelly, that I'm in the saving the world business, and unfortunately it's booming. There's a lot of it to save. So that film has become a guideline and a model for many other films that I've worked on over the years. Teaching filmmakers, I actually have a course online called makingmediathatmatters.com, teaching filmmakers how to leverage sponsors and philanthropy and underwriters and public television and all the pieces of the puzzle. And it is very much a puzzle to do that. And it can be successful. I find that the filmmakers who have the passion to tell the story about their subject are the ones that I best work with. Sometimes they're not even filmmakers, they're experts on the content or the subject matter, and the rest of it we can piece together. So it's been a great career. I'm still going strong, and lately I am now the executive director of the Fund for Sustainable Tomorrows, a nonprofit that I inherited about 5 years ago now from two scholars who took my course. They were 80 years old, Alice and Lincoln Day, when they retired from Columbia University, where they were PhDs in sociology and demography. And they took their entire pension fund, both of them, about $1 million for 50 years of teaching, to make this one film, Scarred Lands and Wounded Lives, which is very popular today with what's going on in Ukraine, about the environmental and social impacts of war, which often are not told in our regular media. So it's been a very rewarding process to run the foundation. I've called up all my old friends who thought they were retired until they get a call from me explaining that they need to get back to work. And so I have really put together a crack team that can get involved with the project, elevate the project. And one of those projects is at foot right now, called Communications for All, around my most recent film, In Our Own Hands, How Patients Are Reinventing Medicine.
Well, I want to, Steve, kind of go back to something remarkable that you said about the fun that you had as a young person growing up, because even though all of the films that you and I have interacted over regarding the film festival have been about very weighty issues and causes, I've always been impressed by the joy and the embrace of life that you bring to things, and that even the films that you have worked on and been so generous to share with us and our audiences, that those films, even when discussing very difficult, weighty topics, they have a strong embrace of life at the center of them. And could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. No one's ever asked that question before. And, you know, growing up in the entertainment industry, I was skilled with commercials and many other types of film media. And I've always had the expression, if you're not having having fun, you're not doing great work. Because after all, this is an entertainment media that we have grown up with on television, in the theaters, everywhere, now streaming. So the joy is important. No one wants to watch and be lectured to and or be told what they haven't done and what they have to do. I often mention that we are in the inspiration business. We must inspire people if we are going to create the change that we are hoping to create. And you have to be patient with that and persistent. No one has created meaningful, long-lasting change, you know, in 15 minutes. It takes time, and almost all of the great change agents in society know that as a fact. And certainly with film, part of my alchemy with film is especially these days where short media or social media is so critical, is to create an entire tapestry of media. A media suite is basically what it is: long form, short form, intermediate, whatever version of a film. It's literally a new verb called versioning, and so you need to version your film as part of what I teach people, and not get stuck on just one orientation of what you think you're creating.
Well, that's an interesting point, because one of the other things I wanted to maybe unpack a little bit with you is that today, presently, the term impact producing, the idea that you take a piece of media, or at least that initial kernel media, and then there may be other pieces that come out of it, as you said, versioning. But you were really doing impact producing before it had really solidified under that kind of terminology. I remember having discussed with you one of the very first times we met, that campaign in 1998 with breast cancer, all the way through. There was the core film content, but then there were all of the other elements that you built that drew people in, and that helped people to grasp and understand the issue. And I think that's what's the ultimate goal. If you could speak to that, to that as a core element of getting, of using the media for these purposes.
Yeah, there's nothing more powerful than motion pictures, and slides, music, all terrific, but there is no other media that combines all the other media like motion pictures do. And so the power of this media to inspire and to create change has been not really tapped as much as it has been used for entertainment. So probably one of the best films was our film called Oil on Ice that I was executive producer of. My neighbor here in Half Moon Bay, California, Dale Gerasi, was the producer of it, and it was designed to save the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge at the time when it was under attack for drilling, and it's been under attack for a very long time. And this film was probably a paradigm in all of the pieces that you're talking about, Kayla, including we raised a grant for going to Washington, D.C. with our cast, with the people in the film who were Gwich'in Native people from Alaska. And every senator and every member of the House of Representatives had a copy of the film, because in the film, Frank Murkowski, the then senator of Alaska, was shown with a white piece of paper saying, "This is all that's up there, just white nothingness." And so we had to counter that, and literally there were 3 votes. It was, if it wasn't for our effort, most likely the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge would have been condemned to becoming another oil patch. And so it was just a great example of the relentless and persistent. We had the Sierra Club was our partners, NRDC was our partners, Earth Justice, all the environmental organizations unified around the film. And Barbara Boxer, I remember, who's in the film, insisted that every member of Congress walk out with a copy of the film, and also the book by fantastic photographer Subhankar Banerjee. So media can change people's hearts and minds. And that's one of the most thrilling things that I find. I never get tired of that process.
Oh, of course. And that's certainly what our central mission is at Global Peace Film Festival. And that's why we're always so delighted every year when we can find a project to collaborate with you over. And just to underline our mission, which is also to inspire and people to take positive action. That example that you just gave showed, a large scale kind of change and networking. But for people watching, this discussion, can you also speak maybe about the kinds of individual changes that you hope that, people will consider things that people can take into their own lives in order to make change.
Yeah. Well, we had a project a few years ago through the Video Project, the film distribution company that I had owned for a long time. It's now a nonprofit called Straws. And it was really a great example of what you're saying, made by a wonderful filmmaker from North Carolina. She really told the history of straws. And I was witness to how fast it had that one scene. The photograph of the turtle that had the plastic straw in its nostril, there were over 7 million likes for that photograph. But we had the actual 20 seconds of footage where you could see the turtle crying, and the biologists used pliers to pull it out of its nose. That scene, all 20 seconds of it, for kids anywhere from 5 to 12, they were dragging their parents out after the film. They stopped using plastic straws at that moment. Their parents were so proud that their kids were taking life into their own hand and making a simple decision. And our team, led by Sherry Annis, who's our development director, we converted the entire wharf area, Pier 39, which hosts over 12 million people a year, and Fisherman's Wharf, to switch from plastic straws to cardboard straws, and or maybe not even straws at all. It was amazing. They paid for it. They had a day when every restaurant had little place cards. Every waiter was trained. We had the press there. We had legislation happening in San Francisco all around getting rid of plastic straws. So something as simple as that. Now, I mean, Starbucks, it's getting harder and harder to find plastic straws. Linda Booker, the filmmaker, she said, well, it's been so successful, I think I'm going to move on to cigarette butts.
That's fantastic. And that's exactly, those are such exciting impacts that a single film can do. So let's widen out a little bit. And in conclusion, let's hear a little bit more from you about what people can do to support your work, and tell us a little bit more about the work of Fund for Sustainable Tomorrows.
Yes, well, we really, there's very little money available for building a campaign around a film. And there's even less, many filmmakers just don't have the skills or the time or the bandwidth to do that. So we work with the filmmakers to put that team in place, sometimes even before the film is done. One of the great misnomers that people think, well, the film is done and now I should start. In Hollywood, they start generating press releases when people have signed deals, long before the film is even started. So I try to bring all that entertainment experience into the nonprofit world for people to become much more entrepreneurial about how to accomplish their goals. So our foundation has a creative director, we have a website designer, we raise money, we have a development department, and we leverage things. This current project that we're doing, communicationsforall.org, number 4, is connected to a hashtag campaign that is really going to raise the roof. 31 million people are non-speakers the world over who have autism, 31 million. And only a very small percentage of them can, once they've learned how to use their finger and use the 26 letters of our alphabet, communicate. So the hashtag campaign is I Am In Here. And it's based on the book by Elizabeth Bonker that sold 30,000 copies that she wrote when she was 12 years old. And it really got a big boost when she and her mom gave a TED Talk. And her mom Ginny Breen was surprised that, that this kid had so much knowledge. And she said, I'm listening, as she was able to do that. So this is a great example of a film in our own hands about the future of healthcare. and how we are rallying around one of the characters in the film to fulfill her lifelong mission to run this foundation. So we formed the foundation with the parents, and we are really empowering it. And we launched it with the help of the Global Peace Film Festival at Rollins College, where she is the valedictorian. When I shot, I was Nina and Kelly, I was at your festival in 2016, and I snuck over and shot some footage with Elizabeth Bonker, and she was the valedictorian of our high school in Winter Park. And the superintendent of schools said, we don't want that retard as our valedictorian. So it just started a whole cavalcade of communications. And now that she's the valedictorian of her college at Rollins College, which is such a progressive school and a fantastic university for people like Elizabeth, it's been amazing to see how this project has launched. And we have great hopes for it to dramatically change the lives of those 31 million people once they know that, number one, we all know that they're in there, and number two, that there are things that they can do to communicate. So Communications for All is my latest project, and our foundation is working with the family and many others. We already have 8 sponsoring organizations: the Autism Society, 2M Foundation. Many foundations have stepped up right away to join us. And that's one of the key parts of being successful, is to network and bring together like-minded citizens and organizations.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your time and for sharing your remarkable story. We at Nina and I are always delighted when we have a chance to work with you. You're one of our favorite collaborators. And I want to remind everyone who has listened that if you do want to support the work and you're inspired by the conversation that we had today with Steve, please go to the Fund for Sustainable Tomorrows.org. That's the Fund for Sustainable Tomorrows.org, and check out all of the terrific work that he has done. And you never know, there might be another project in the future with GPFF, because we're always staying in dialogue with you. So thank you everyone for listening. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and to share these talks with people that you care about. And we will see you at the Global Peace Film Festival. Thank you.